All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new DC movie review. Yes, I just got back from seeing James Gunn's Superman for the Amazon Prime special showing. And I saw it on what I believe is the largest screen in Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. It was at the Cineone XL. And so the screen's so big it has to curve, which is pretty cool. And I don't even know where to start with this review. Now, this is probably going to be my most watched video for a movie review on my channel ever. And it should be. And here's what I'm going to tell you guys. I did go into this movie as a complete blank slate. In fact, I posted right before seeing the film, and I said what's crazy about all of this is that this is a brand new Superman film. We haven't had one in 12 years, and I had no feelings towards it. None whatsoever. I didn't hate the fact that I was there. I wasn't excited to be there. I went in completely blank, regardless of the studio that made it, the people that made it, and oh my gosh, we got to talk about this here. So, first of all, I want everybody to know Henry Cavill is not in the film. He is not Ultraman. There were so many people online saying he was going to be Ultraman. They swore it was going to be Henry Cavill. It is not Henry Cavill, okay? So I want that out there because I don't want anybody going in hoping they're going to see Henry Cavill in this film. Henry Cavill is not in this film. In fact, this film does not address at all how the DCEU changes into the DCU. Does not address it in any way, shape, or form. Okay? So people need to go in with this. This is a movie that you're just thrown into. I mean, you are literally thrown into this at the very beginning of the film. It does have a crawl at the beginning, and I'm going to keep this spoiler-free. So I'm going to keep it as spoilers-free as I can. There's a couple things I'm going to talk about in regards to the editing that are going to pertain to some of the stuff we saw in the trailers. But that's it. I'm not gonna spoil the movie. I will do a separate video later this week actually talking about spoilers in the film. Well, it'll probably be early next week because I'm going to be tied up this weekend. But you're thrown into this movie, and it does start with Superman, you know, the scene where he hits the snow, and then we go from there. And there's no... This isn't something where they're going to go back and tell you how they got there. They don't do that, okay? That's actually where the movie starts, and we move from that point forward. I want to talk about the worst part of this film, okay? The score, by far. The score is the most unmemorable superhero score I have ever heard, ever. It was tonally all over the place. Like, there was no central theme. It was, in some scenes, it would be like this. Some scenes, it would be like that. They would bring in the theme several different ways. And it was just nothing good about the score at all. And in fact, there's a scene in this movie with Mr. Terrific that should have had a score behind it, but instead, James Gunn does his freaking music. He also does it with another very emotional scene. And I'm not going to tell you where it is, but he drops another song. He takes the most emotional and cool parts of the movie and he adds songs to it. Those two scenes needed a memorable score. The score for this movie is non-existent. 0 out of 5. 0 out of 5. Okay? So let's talk about the film itself. Here's what I did like. David Cornsweet, first of all, it's his birthday today. So happy birthday to David Cornsweet. He played a great Superman. I'm not going to lie. I was totally not sold on him. He was great. He was awesome. And they did keep that scene in there where he flies through the snow, by the way. The beginning of this movie, I had some hope. When it first started, the first 5 to 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm going to dig this movie. This could end up being pretty cool. Like I said, I go in with a completely open mind. I wanted to have a good time. I wanted to love this movie. And then you start getting into the story, and oh my gosh. First, let's talk about the characters, and then I'll talk about what I'm about to talk about. So, David Cornsweet as Superman was great. I loved his attitude. I loved the way they portrayed him. This was a good portrayal of Superman. The suit didn't bother me at all, as a matter of fact. During during the movie. They definitely did some cleaning up on it, and it looked nowhere near like what it looked in some of the stills and some of the other things that we saw. So I had no problem with him as Superman. I think he did a great job. I think Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, she did a great job. Everybody else, not so much. Mr. Terrific is not entirely accurate to the way he is in the comics or the way he's portrayed. He's a little more goofy in this. But I did not like Hawkgirl, and I did not like Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. These two characters were so ridiculous and silly, they didn't match the rest of the film. And neither did some of the females, like Kat from the Daily Planet. You also had Tessmarker. These characters were like over-the-top goofy. They didn't match the tone of the rest of the characters or the tone of the movie. I also really did not like, what's his name who played Lex? You guys all know who he is. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but I did not like him as Lex. Everyone gave Eisenberg crap for the way he portrayed Lex. This, to me, is way worse. Lex is supposed to be a cold, calculating individual. In here, he's a brash, over-the-top, emotional. He does things at the spur of the moment. He's not cold and calculating. And they don't explain how he's able to do anything. He just does it. And it's really crazy the way they throw you into this. Like, you get no backstory on anybody. In fact, you have the whole Justice Gang thing. They don't talk about how they came about, and they're in the Hall of Justice. They don't even talk about how they came about. And there's no backstory to any of it. All you find out is that they're friends with Superman. That's it. There's no backstory to where they came from, how they formed, how they even got to know each other or communicate, or what kind of a level of friends they are. You get none of that. None of that. People complained about that with Black Adam. This is like 10 times worse. There are so many characters in this film that it really takes away from the next part of this that I really did not like. This is going to scare a lot of people. So, you know, when Madam Web came out and they talked about the editing in that film, this film, not too far behind that. This film gave me a freaking headache. The editing on this is the worst editing I have ever seen on a DC film. The way the scene transitions went, the way the story was told, it's nauseating. It's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. It all just comes at you from all these different angles, and you don't have time to like catch your breath or even understand what's going on. You could tell that stuff was cut out, and it doesn't flow. There is no flow to this movie. No flow. And to show you how bad the editing is, this is how ridiculous it is, and I'm not giving much away if you've seen some of the trailers, but you already saw where Lex infiltrates the Fortress of Solitude. That happens pretty early in the movie. And while they're there trying to gather the information they need, you know, the engineer is afraid of Superman showing back up, and Lex says, "Don't worry, I've taken care of that." And then a couple of his henchmen are releasing a little baby kaiju in the middle of the night in Metropolis, and Lex is like, "I'm already on top of that to keep him occupied." But then the very next scene is Superman pushing up the kaiju with the foot. Like literally, the very next scene is during the middle of the day, and he's pushing up the foot of the kaiju. The kaiju's in the middle of Metropolis, doesn't manage to damage any buildings at all. You got the little girl that he has to save is just willy-nilly walking around with this big monster. Like, none of it makes any sense. The people of Metropolis have to be the dumbest people I've ever seen. Everything around this, it's the tone of the film. It didn't know whether it wanted to be a comedy or not. Now, let's talk about Crypto, because Crypto is the one that adds 99% of the comedy of the film. I didn't mind it so much, but it was completely unnecessary. You did not have to have Crypto in this film. And I think the reason they did it was to tie something in at the very end of the movie. In fact, all of the leaks that everybody heard were true. All of it. The super shit with the monkeys, all of it. And that is where Superman got the angriest in the film. So that was not a joke. Now, there were no jokes putting down the Snyderverse people. None of that was in the film. I can guarantee you that was something they probably took out. So at the end of the day, I was afraid that I was going to go in and not like the film because it was over-the-top comedy, or that James Gunn was going to change the character so much, and he did on some things. In fact, there's something he does with Superman's Kryptonian heritage that I think is like it's a black mark on no. If I was the head of DC and I saw somebody come in with this story, I would have said, nope, we're not doing that. But he went there with it. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but he did it. He changed the lore of Superman and his Kryptonian parents, and I didn't like what they did at all, okay? This film, tonally, because of all of this stuff in there, there's no identity to it. You got the goofy Justice Gang, you got the goofy dog, you got the serious, Lois and Clark. Oh, well, not even Clark. And let's talk about Clark for a minute, because Clark is only in the movie at the very beginning. And then you don't see Clark again the entire film. So it's all about Superman. And Superman is in this enough. I don't know, we heard reports that he wasn't in it enough. Oh, he's definitely in it enough. But the tone of the film and the editing, nauseating, completely off. So at the end of the day, it takes you out of the film because you don't have a flow to it. You can't get invested in the characters because there's no backstory. You know nothing about them. They just throw you into everything. They throw you into this. They throw you into that. You go into this. And it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, for the people who have seen the clip of Lois, telling, Perry White in the Daily Planet telling, looking over at Lois saying, do you still have that saucer thing on the roof? In the movie, there's no way they would have known about it. Like they didn't even show how she talked about it or how it was even introduced to them. It just happens to be on the top of the Daily Planet and they know about it. Like, it's weird. The editing and the way the movie flows is just, it's beyond comprehension. Like, they just throw things at you. It's complete nonsense. Let's talk about where I rank this, okay? I think this is the worst Superman film that's ever been made, just because it has no identity. Superman's great. Lois is great. Everything else, not so much. And I'm really curious to see if there's going to be a director's cut to this, to see if it makes it better. But this to me is not a good start to the DCU. It's not at all. Now, I could see Corn Sweat continuing as Superman, but the rest of it, no. And it's really crazy the way in the film how James Gunn decides to tie this to the rest of the stuff that he's done, okay? But it doesn't do anything to explain how it switched from the DCEU to the DCU. There's no explanation at all. There's, in fact, no explanation to anything in this film, and it's a detriment to the film. It really is. This is a very weird way to start this off, and I really wanted to like this film, but I don't, but not for the reasons I was expecting. It's not for the comedy. It's not because it was just James Gunn. I don't know if this is the editor's fault. I don't know if this is James Gunn's writing's fault. I don't know who to blame this on. I just don't. All I know is the buck stops with James Gunn because he wrote this, he directed it. At the end of the day, he made the final decisions. And he is not the right guy to be in charge. I can tell you that. All right, guys, so there's my review. I really wanted to like it, but here's my score on the film. If I was to give this a score out of 5, I give it a 2. 2. This isn't something I would want to own. It's really not a movie I ever want to see again. And so it's just not good. I don't know what else to say. Some other people, the reviews, if you go watch even the good reviews for this film, there are a lot of people talking about the pacing and the tone. Like, it is bad. It is borderline Madam Web bad. It is that bad. All right, guys, so there's my review on the film. I wanted it to be better. I really wanted to like this movie, but at the end of the day, I can't believe we traded what we had for this. All right, guys, so there's my review. I would love to hear what other people think down below. I liked the message of the movie. I liked Corn Sweat as Superman, but the rest of it, not so much. All right, guys, we will see you on the next review.